Okay, we're going to get started. Hi, everybody. Hello. Hello, everybody. You guys clean up really well. You look great. You look great. We're going to go ahead and get started today. So I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Professor Charlie Geyh, who is going to speak to you. And then we'll go on with the rest of the day. But thank you guys for all being here so promptly. And, you know, you look nice and we're ready to go. Thank you.
Let me just say, this is the first time that I have spoken to an audience whilst wearing pants in almost a year. I can only imagine the relief. And while we're on the subject of attire, I want to tell you, I'm a little intimidated by all the dark suits, but my heart is gladdened by the fact that we aren't going to be seen in one room dressed this uncomfortably for the rest of your tour of duty here. Thank God. In that regard, those of you who have to endure me for civil procedure will soon discover that my sartorial style is best described as 90s hobo. But enough of that. Ladies and gentlemen, consider the lawyer joke. Question: what is the difference between a dead snake and a dead lawyer on the side of the road? Answer: skid marks in front of the snake. Question: why have scientists replaced rats with lawyers in laboratory experiments? Answer: the scientists were becoming emotionally attached to their rats. Animal rights groups don't care what happens to lawyers, and there are some things you just can't get a rat to do. Question: why don't sharks eat lawyers? Answer: professional courtesy. And finally, one that takes a 3 count to figure out, but then you can get it, is how many lawyers does it take to roof a house? Answer: it depends upon how thinly you slice them. So, you got to think about it for a moment, right? So, what's the deal? What is, what's the message? Lawyers are loathsome. Lawyers are vicious. Lawyers are unprincipled. Where does that come from? Now, it seems to me that there are at least 4 things lurking in there. And the first 3 are beyond our control. First, lawyers step in and make their living when people are in crisis. And to that extent, will always be seen as preying on the misery of others. Second, lawyers are called upon to represent some incredibly unpopular people: war criminals, terrorists, pedophiles, and sociopaths, and they will always be tarred with their client's brush. Third, lawyers are trained to exploit the law for their clients' benefit and will always be accused of taking unfair advantage. Those go with the territory. But then there's the fourth one, that 9 lawyers out of 10 quietly go about their business ethically and honorably, but it's the 10th who does not that's going to grab the headline. And lawyers' jokes are funny because they exaggerate what people perceive to be a kernel of truth underlying the joke. Think about it for a moment. If the joke ran, "Why don't sharks eat orphans?" and the answer is professional courtesy, what the hell? That's not funny. And so I think that the point is, in our business, any unethical conduct is too much. And the time to start thinking about that is now. Law schools take enormous pride in our teaching you to think like lawyers, but I think training you to act like good lawyers is likewise our responsibility. Now, before we get off the subject of the lawyer joke altogether, I did want to offer you your first practice pointer. Now, as a practicing lawyer, you're going to encounter innumerable clients who are going to gleefully sidle up to you and tell you a lawyer joke that you have heard 30 times before. Now, bear in mind that it isn't especially funny the first time you've heard it, because it invariably deals with lawyers being tortured, killed, or made fun of. Nevertheless, when you hear that joke, there are 3 possible responses. One is you wait for the punchline, and then you rise up and declare with your voice quavering, "I am shocked that you would impugn my profession thus. Good day." I said, "Good day, sir." Now, those people don't have any friends and they don't make much money. The second possibility takes some practice, but it's worth a shot. And that is the client asks you the joke. "What's the difference between a dead lawyer and a dead snake on the side of the road?" You wait for the punchline. The punchline is delivered, skid marks in front of the snake. At that point, you discipline yourself to wait an incredibly awkward 3 count before you say, and this takes practice in the mirror, Now, what that does, it conveys the impression that yes, you are my client, and therefore I will laugh at your jokes, but it doesn't mean I don't still think you're a douchebag. The third and final opportunity is to basically say, look, when the client asks you a question, it's services rendered, man, and just bill them provide the answer and bill them for it. So, moving on, when we hear that, the question is when we talk about professionalism, and that's what this talk is about. What do we mean? Well, it means different things in different settings, it would seem. When we hear that a college athlete is going pro, that he's becoming a professional, it means that he's getting paid, that he's doing it full time. He's doing it for a livelihood. When we ask someone for their professional opinion, it means that they have special expertise or special ability. And finally, when we hear someone say that she's a true professional, it means that she's a class act, that she holds herself out to a higher standard of conduct, that she puts other interests ahead of her own. And that derives from the Latin definition of professional, to profess, or to take a public oath for the public good. Now, Roscoe Pound, who's best name in the history of law, with the possible exception of learned hand, defined a profession with a 3-part definition. He defined it as the practice of a learned art as a common calling in the spirit of public service. Now, breaking that into 3 parts, talking a little bit about what it means to talk about a professional as someone who practices a learned art. That captures this notion of special expertise or ability, okay? It implies the need to be competent, to be diligent, and it suggests the possibility that I think you need to be alert to with increasing frequency now that you're in law school, which is that missing deadlines, lack of familiarity with changes in the law, failure to communicate adequately with your clients, or in my case, your professor, will ultimately, as lawyers, result in malpractice liability, ineffective assistance of counsel, and discipline for lack of diligence. And it puts a new spin on how you approach the enterprise of law school, ending every week early, blowing things off the party, and so forth. Well, business as usual for many college students is something that you need to start thinking about, because in 3 years, that luxury will not be available to you. The second piece of the Pound definition refers to a profession as a common calling. And when it comes to what we have in common, I think the point here is that we're part of a legal community. And as a community, we observe basic norms of civility, courtesy, and common decency, even though we are often called upon in an adversarial system to disagree vigorously with each other. And you will find, and some maybe among you will say, that's not me. You know, I plan to belch nails, trap thunder, and leave scorched earth in my wake. Now, apart from the fact that those dudes are really unpleasant to be around and kind of foul the nest of the community, I would argue that that is really adverse to your success as a practitioner. That, you know, a lawyer's relationships with other lawyers, with judges, and with court personnel are kind of like spokes in a wheel. And if you damage one of those spokes, you know, the wheel turns badly. And so if in an effort to prevail in a given matter, a lawyer refuses reasonable requests, tries to win through intimidation, behaves like a jackass, he loses the respect of his colleagues. And as a consequence, no one's going to cut that lawyer some slack, do him common courtesy when he and his clients need it, to the detriment of his career and his clients' causes. And so to that extent, you know, it's not just the right thing to do, but you can do well by doing good in that regard. The people in this room will be part of your professional community for the rest of your life. They will be in a position to offer you advice, to give you referrals, to offer you jobs, burn bridges with them at your peril. Now, you're going to have opportunities to practice civility and common decency inside and outside of the classroom because we live in highly polarized times. The temptation to become angry or dismissive with people whose views you oppose is considerable, but in times this volatile, the rule of law is our nation's bulwark against collapse of the constitutional order and defense and descent into resolving our disagreements through violence. And as a group of people committed to the rule of law, it's imperative that we remain civil and decent with each other, notwithstanding our differences, even when those around us rage out of control. Simply put, we need to be better than that. Now, this notion of a profession as a common calling denotes that what you share is not just a job, but a calling. You will become officers of the court. You will take an oath to uphold the law. You're going to be bound to uphold standards of our profession in your public and private lives. By entering law school, you become a representative of your profession. What that means is that youthful indiscretions, so-called, love that turn of phrase, look different. That means showing up drunk on social media looks different. Plagiarism and cheating has never been a cool thing, but it is a career ender beginning now. Now, returning to Pound's definition of a profession, we've talked about the first 2/3 of that definition, about the practice of a learned art, about it being a common calling, which leaves the third component, in the spirit of public service. But that implies an orientation toward others. Now, there's nothing wrong with worrying about yourself, with finding a job that makes you happy, making a good living, supporting yourself and your family, finding a good work-life balance. Indeed, you aren't likely to be able to help others if you hate your job, hate yourself, and don't know where your next meal is coming from. But being part of a profession means more than that. It means committing yourself to standards of conduct that sometimes put the interests of the public ahead of yourself. Now, you're already off to a good start. Committing yourself to masking up in this damned pandemic has less to do with keeping yourself safe from others than keeping others safe from you. It's an inconvenience that we bear for the benefit of the most vulnerable among us. But putting the interests of others ahead of yourself has a range of specific applications for lawyers and students. Talking about lawyers first, let me give you an example. A client, and these are drawn from real world examples. A client came to her lawyer and said, my sister and I were living together. She just bolted after draining our joint bank account of $180,000. Can you help me? The lawyer offers to assist the client in exchange for 1/3 of whatever he recovers from the sister. He did so knowing where the sister was, knowing that he could resolve the matter with a simple phone call. Now, from a business perspective, This might seem to be a shrewd business decision, but for lawyers who are subject to a duty not to charge excessive fees, it is a serious ethics violation. Another example featuring, which really talks about the role that lawyers, the ethical responsibilities of lawyers don't end at the office door. A real estate lawyer took the money that he made while in practice and invested in an apartment building where he converted all the mirrors in the bedrooms and bathrooms to two-way mirrors so he could spy on people in their bedrooms and bathrooms, like you do. When he was found out and brought before the bar, his defense was, yeah, okay, it's a little pervy, but what I did had nothing to do with my practice of law. Everything I'd done with my clients is fine. And the court was unmoved, saying, look, this reflects so badly on your integrity and your fitness to practice law that we want no part of that. Point being that you are 24/7 in that sense, a lawyer really beginning now. The same is true of students. This is a somewhat chilling example because at some level, my heart goes out to the guy, but it's an example that's, I think, worth thinking about. There's a student at the UCLA who was in the top 10% of his class, was on the law review, was the treasurer of the moot court board, had a job offer that he had accepted in Washington, D.C., where he was going to be admitted. And during his third year, his sister got arrested. He needed to post bail. And what he did was dip into the till of the moot court fund to pay her bail. He did so fully, and I think all evidence is that he intended to pay it back. And faculty came to his defense saying he's a stand-up guy, but the court denied him admission, explaining that one of the primary problems lawyers have in practice is managing their clients' funds. They deal with deposits, they deal with retainers. They understand that it is a cardinal rule. You don't mess with the client's funds for personal use. And this guy had failed that mission right out of the chute. And he was denied admission to the bar and ultimately his career went in a different direction. So, as a professional, you acquire special knowledge that you use in the service of others who lack that knowledge and who must put their trust in you to provide it. And knowledge is power, and with that power comes responsibility, with a footnote to Spider-Man. Responsibility not to exploit that relationship to the benefit of your client. Now, really entering the final phase of what I want to talk about here today. Putting the interests of others ahead of yourself is easy to say on paper. It is not easy to do in practice all of the time. And what I'd like to talk a little bit about is a famous or perhaps infamous experiment referred to as the Good Samaritan experiment that was conducted at Princeton years ago. The parable of the Good Samaritan comes from the New Testament. And in it, a man is robbed, beaten, and left on the roadside. First, a high-ranking priest passes the wounded man by, and then a high-ranking Levite passes him by, but a much-hated Samaritan stops to render assistance. And in the parable, Jesus declares that the Samaritan is the true neighbor to this man. Now, in the experiment, a group of Princeton seminarians were asked to prepare a lecture. Half of them prepared a lecture on the Good Samaritan parable. The other half prepared a lecture on how to get seminary jobs. And the winners were to receive scholarship money. All right? They were positioned in a building on one side of the quad. And when their time to speak arose, they would walk across the quad to another building where they would give their talk. Unbeknownst to them, there was a plan. An actor was on the grass in the quad, so that when the students walked across, there was a man doubled over and in pain, moaning. Now, the students were told one of two things. One group was said, "It's your time to come over, don't rush, you're fine, just come on over." The other group was told, "You got to come now or you're going to miss your opportunity to speak. The schedule's changed and you're up now, you better get here now." And so the question was, what would these people do with regard to the moaning person? 63% of those in the rush situation, where they're told, "Get here now or you'll lose your shot," 63% did not and offer aid in that situation. 10% on the other hand, offered it in the rush situation. So in other words, that when they weren't under rush, a significant majority was willing to render aid. In the rush, only 10%. The other, which is more relevant to our purposes, is that 53% rendered assistance when they were preparing the Good Samaritan parable, whereas 29% rendered it in the job scenario. Now, the problem is, given the size of the sample, that last difference was tight enough that it wasn't statistically significant. In other words, from the standpoint of the social scientists involved, they couldn't conclude anything specific about whether thinking about the Good Samaritan made you behave more like a Good Samaritan or not, even though there was this 53 to 29% differential. So, what conclusions do you draw from that finding? Well, one is people suck, and thinking about ethics has no statistically significant impact on their behavior. So why bother with a session like this if you're going to do what you're going to do anyway? I think my answer to that is twofold. First is that 53 to 29% differential may not be statistically significant, but it is still potentially suggestive of something. And second, maybe what it means is that preparing a single lecture isn't enough. And neither is holding one session on professionalism. You know, me getting up here with an ugly tie, flapping my arms and talking to you for 25 minutes is not going to do the trick. Today needs to be the start, not the end. And if we take our desire to act like good lawyers as seriously as we do taking you, getting you to think like good lawyers, maybe it will make a difference. Okay? Now, the parable of the Good Samaritan featured 3 travelers, 2 bad ones and a good one. I don't give too much of a damn about the bad ones. If your first impulse when encountering a seriously injured person is to basically poke him with your toe and say, "Oh, that one's a bitch," you're kind of beyond help, right? Conversely, I don't think that I worry too much about if you're the Good Samaritan either. If your first impulse upon seeing others is to say, "I live for self-sacrifice, take my car, take my pants, do you need my kidney?" then you're Mahatma Gandhi, and you'll do fine without anybody's help. But there's another Samaritan that the parable never mentions, someone I call the so-so Samaritan. He comes upon the injured man as he's walking by, and he thinks, "Oh, maybe I should help." Then he thinks, maybe he could be faking, though. This could be a trap to rob me. Or I got to get across, the line to, where I'm about to talk, or I'm going to lose the scholarship I need to basically keep on keeping on as far as my education goes. Someone else is bound to help. This is a crowded quad. I'm no doctor. I could make matters worse. Or he may have a chronic condition. He may not want my help. I may only humiliate or embarrass him. But upon reflection, you think, but I got to do something. By this point, you're half a block further along, and you decide to go back only to discover that the Good Samaritan's attending to the guy, and you've been written out of the parable altogether. So where does this take you? It's the so-so Samaritan that I'm most interested in, because that's where the untapped potential is, where we have good impulses, but we need the tools necessary to make them a reality. And practice of law is form fit for that potential. Think for a moment about why people go to lawyers. It's because the worst thing that could happen in their lives has just happened. They've been arrested. They've suffered a crippling injury. They've gone bankrupt. Their marriage has gone sideways, and their children's futures hang in the balance. They're about to be deported. And they turn to you for help because you have the specialized skills and training to help them. And think about the world in which we are living today. Civil rights and the Black Lives Matter movement, due process rights and the trials of suspected terrorists, consumer rights and the Wall Street banking scandals, drug approvals and the COVID pandemic, identity theft and the internet, the rights of Muslims to travel here, the rights of immigrants to stay here, the rights of transgendered soldiers to serve here. If your first impulse is to look at this landscape, rub your hands together and cackle cha-ching, you're in the wrong room. But if your reaction is to say, this is my cue to roll up my sleeves, get involved, and do some good, welcome to the best profession on the planet. Welcome aboard, guys.
Well, Professor Geyh is always a very hard act to follow, but I would go ahead then, and I'm going to introduce the rest of what we have going on today. So immediately after I get done here, we're going to have Dean Parrish come up and talk again, and then we are going to welcome your president of your SBA, Heather Jen. And she is one of the people that Professor Geyh is talking about, the people that come here with the heart to help others and to serve others. And she is going to be telling us about our award-winning, our student award winner today too. And then later we will introduce the Honorable Doris Pryor, who is going to give you a wonderful speech and also do our professionalism oath. So before Dean Parrish comes up, I would like to just leave you with a quote from one of, if not one of the most learned legal scholars of our time, but certainly the best dressed, Miss Elle Woods, class of 2004, Harvard. It is with passion, courage of conviction, and strong sense of self that we take our next steps into the world. So please take advantage of the next 3 years to discover what your passion is, to develop those convictions, and to take advantage of what we have here to help you identify what that sense of self is, and to do that good work that Professor Geyh said, and go out into the world. And with that, I will leave you with Dean Parrish.
Well, thank you, Dean McFadden. As we conclude our orientation program, it's my pleasure as Dean to be able to formally welcome you to law school on behalf, not just myself, we talked yesterday, but also on behalf of the entire faculty and staff. The study of law, I think, is always inspiring. It's going to be undoubtedly challenging, but I think you're going to find it enjoyable. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce Heather Jen, the chair of the Student Bar Association and one of our rising 3L stars. You'll then hear from Judge Doris Pryor, a distinguished alum and fabulous jurist. We are fortunate that each year we're able to bring, frankly, it's just some wonderful alums to come back and speak to you and give the keynote address, and very privileged to have Judge Pryor add her name to our distinguished list of guests. You'll then take our professionals oath, as Dean McFadden said, to conclude. Before introducing Heather, I wanted to briefly highlight two things. Part of what makes Bloomington a special place to study law is the people here to guide you in that journey. You'll meet many of our faculty over the next couple of days. Some of them have been lurking in the back and are here today. They are outstanding teachers. They're scholars and mentors who will challenge you, they will frustrate you, and they will cheer you on in the next couple of years. Feel free to go bother them in their office hours, and you can say that the dean sent you. So be sure to take advantage of those opportunities. The faculty here are absolutely fabulous. And so too are the staff. They're here to support you and lend a hand. They are often the backbone behind the scenes of what we do that make this a great place. And a lot of the staff here are cheering you on too. And so make sure you get to know them too. That will make your experience here all the more better. Lastly, one of the key parts of our community is our students. And just as you are a fabulous class, the classes before you have also been exceptional. It's my pleasure to introduce now the chair of this year's Student Bar Association, the Jen, who will give remarks and then present the Leadership Award this year to a continuing student who has done the most to promote an inclusive and welcoming community, sort of highlighting those things I just mentioned. The president of the Student Bar Association, an elected position, which underscores how much Heather is supported and admired by her classmates. She grew up in Michigan, and like many of our students, is a first-generation law student. She came to law school after graduating from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, where she was a James B. Agnos Scholar with a double major in political science and international studies. Those were my degrees, so nicely done, Heather. During her time in Michigan, she served as the Penn Atlantic president, which is the largest student organization at the University of Michigan, and where she focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. She also worked for 2 US members of Congress and taught competitive dance before coming to law school. This summer, she interned at the Grand Rapids City Attorney's Office and Parker Harvey, a law firm in Traverse City, Michigan. At the law school, she has served on the executive board of the Protective Order Project and of the Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity. She has also volunteered for the Wills Assistance Project, is a member of the Journal of Law and Social Equality, and was a quarterfinalist in last year's 2020 Sherman Minton Moot Court competition. She served on the Student Bar Association for 2 years and was elected president last spring in a school-wide election. Please join me in warmly welcoming Heather Jones.
Thank you, Dean Parrish. Here we go. Well, good afternoon. It is a privilege to be here in front of you today. It's taken a lot of effort, a lot of courage to be here in these seats today with all the people orchestrating orientation and you all coming to Bloomington finally. I know you are ready to get started, do some case briefing, as I see that you have learned how to do earlier today, and I just wish you all the best. You are here for a reason, and I hope that you do not doubt that. There will be moments this year where you might question it, but please, please remember this feeling that you have, the excitement of starting the next chapter of your journey here. Just a little bit about the Student Bar Association. We are the governing entity here. We're the student government. We advocate to the administration on behalf of your needs. Anything that comes up, we relay the message, and we try and really do good work here for our students because we genuinely care. We also offer support and funding for other student organizations, and we just want to make ourselves available and transparent to you this year. I'm sure you have already seen that we have a Canvas module that we are hoping to be very active on, and we are also in the process of opening up meetings so that you guys can all experience everything to the best that we have to offer here. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you see me in the hallway, if you want to send me a quick email. I like making my phone number available to anybody. I can't promise anything. I've gotten a lot of COVID concerns from the students, but I really do want to relay those on and make sure that everyone is as comfortable as possible this year. A word on community. We have a very big job. We need to bridge a gap this year. My class is pretty much the only remaining students that have experienced full Mauer. And when I mean full Mauer, I talk about this. If you sit outside our law school and you watch the amount of people that hold open the door for another student, you can bet your butt that we are probably the highest door holders on this campus. That's the type of community that you are joining today. And I want to impress this upon you. It doesn't just mean holding open the door. It means helping your friend move, sitting on those couches and having genuine conversations with your classmates and your colleagues in the future. It means grabbing coffee. It means if somebody is in the last 5 minutes of your exam and you're feeling the time crunch and you see a mouse go flying, you stop and you help pick that up because you want everybody to succeed genuinely. That is something that I must impress upon you. The faculty, staff, every student here, we all want each other to succeed. So we are probably, we are proud of the community that we have fostered here. Another job that I have today is to present the Student Leadership in Fostering Community and Inclusiveness Award. This award celebrates a student who goes above and beyond to foster diverse, inclusive, supportive, and a welcoming community. It recognizes a non-graduating JD or graduate degree student who has made the greatest contribution over the prior year to fostering a welcoming and inclusive community, and who is a role model for collegiality, civility, and professionalism. This year's recipient is Olivia Potter. She can't be here with us today because she is out doing good, of course. She is participating in our DC program here, and she's probably going to change the world. This award is very important. Olivia embodies the ideal colleague who is civically minded and wants to make her community a better place. Once again, congratulations to you all. The next few years are going to challenge you and define you, but they will not break you because you have a community behind you that cares. We are here. You all deserve to be in these seats, and please do not ever doubt that. Best of luck, and I hope to see you in the hallways.
Well, thanks so much, Heather, for those inspiring words. And Olivia is really exceptional. We were disappointed she wasn't able to make it, but she was tied up. So let's now move to the professionalism oath, and I'm having steaming glassing problems all day today. So, as other people have said, law school is what you make of it, and you've been admitted to one of the nation's oldest public law schools. And as I mentioned yesterday, you're walking in the footsteps of some of the great trailblazers that came before you. The privilege carries responsibilities, and one of those responsibilities is to take full advantage of all the opportunities that you're going to have. And that includes connecting to student organizations, but it's also, as Heather says, working hard, supporting your classmates, exercising all your intellectual muscles, throwing yourself into the study of the law. That said, while you're doing this, it's important to remember that you're entering a profession, and that with that profession, as you embark on this journey to become a lawyer, you'll become an officer of the legal system. We started doing this professionalism oath because it seemed a little odd to have the professionalism oath that you would normally do right before you're administered to the bar, right? You will have to do this almost in every state. You will swear an oath after you've graduated before you're admitted as an attorney. It seems a little odd to tell you not to commit felonies and kill people after you spent your 3 years in law school. It seems appropriate to let you know that your professional career actually begins today. And what's true is that, and it's hard to believe this now, but your classmates that are sitting next to you now are going to be your future colleagues. I was stunned how small the legal community is ultimately once you've gone through it. And so the relationships that you're developing today are the relationships that you're going to have throughout a career. Okay. The emphasis on professionalism and being supportive of one another is why each year we invite somebody to come in to give keynote remarks on professionalism and then administer the professionalism oath. Today, it's my privilege to introduce you to Judge Doris Pryor. Judge Pryor is a 2003 graduate of our law school. She's had a simply fantastic and inspiring career. Before joining the federal bench, she served as the National Security Chief for the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Indiana, and as Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Indiana. And prior to that, as Deputy Public Defender in the State of Arkansas Public Defenders Commission. After graduation, she served 2 terms as a law clerk, first for Judge Leon Holmes in the U.S. District for the Eastern District of Arkansas, and for Chief Judge Levinsky Smith of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit. Judge Pryor is a fabulous jurist, but she's more than that. She's been active in her community, serving with the Federal Bar Association, the Indianapolis Bar Association, as a board member of Goodwill Education Initiatives, and with the Just Beginning Foundation. For several years, the law school has held an innovative January intercession program that provides unique opportunities for students to learn practical skills within a 1-week intensive program at the start of January. Judge Pryor was one of our inaugural founding faculty members of that program, who taught that for many years, a pretrial litigation course focused on criminal law practice, complete with FBI agents and witnesses. The reason why we have her coming in with her background in national security and with the FBI is don't mess up or she'll come after you. Actually, I probably shouldn't have said that. She's and as being sort of illustrative of being a kind and supportive to classmates and how important to that, she met her husband, also a grad and also who joins us here today, while she was at law school. Please join me in warmly welcoming our distinguished guest, Judge Doris Pryor.
The mic is not height appropriate. Thank you very much and good afternoon to all of you. Before I proceed, I have to following protocol. I have to first thank Dean Parrish for this opportunity. I also have to thank Chelsea Browning and Katie Beck for thinking enough of me to allow me to join this moment with all of you this afternoon. I am truly grateful. And it is an honor to be here and to stand behind this podium to administer the professionalism oath. Now, before I move forward, I have to also thank my husband, Johnny, as well as my son, John, for joining me in this moment this afternoon, and just thanking you for traveling and giving up your Saturday to be with me, to all of you. Now, in just a moment, we're going to administer the oath, but the few minutes that I have with you, I need you to do something for me, if you don't mind. I need for you to, let's say the clock is right at 12:36-ish. Give yourself yourself, let's say 10 minutes. Just give yourself 10 minutes to just be. I want you to just be here in this moment. Don't check your phone. Don't look at me and see if I see you checking your social media feed. Don't check your watch. Don't worry about it. You've already gotten the ticket. The meter is already overran. Just be. Okay? Just be. Let me tell you why. I want you to give yourself that because you earned it. You did a lot to be here at 2:39 on a Saturday as you engage and embark and join this illustrious alumni of Mauer School of Law. So just be. Because you won't remember probably what I said, and you probably won't even remember my name. But what you will remember is how you felt. You will remember for the next 7 minutes how you felt, because that's something that I can't take away. But those seats that you're occupying, please don't take it for granted, because someone else would have done anything at 2:39 to be in that seat. You're occupying the seat. What does that mean? I don't want you to be naive and think that you got in that seat by yourself. There was a lot of sacrificing that happened to get you in that seat. There are a lot of family members, some friends, some professors, some teachers who have poured into you to ensure that you occupied that seat. Even though they can't be in this room with us, in this moment with us, and being present with us, but they are, because you're here and you're a part of their puzzle. So if you don't mind, if it's not too much of an inconvenience, even though they're not here, let's give them a rounding hand of applause to tell them thank you. The reason why I needed to do that, because at the corner of my eye, when I was canvassing the room right before I started my remarks, I saw the piece of the puzzle that was put into me that allowed me to be here. And I was laughing as I looked at Sue Shields in the mirror, because right before I took this job, as I stood behind this podium, she was the woman who came to me and said, I want you to take my seat. And then the lady right next to her, when we had dinner a few months ago, she said, you know, it's a little lonely being a jurist, but I'm glad that you're occupying that seat. See, those pictures, those mirrors, when I was sitting in that seat, I never thought that I would be or even know the photos behind me, because they were just that, photos. They were just images. But in less than 3 short years, this could be a part of your life. And so the reason why I share that with you is because I see in this audience today the professor who poured into me, and it's Janine Bell. Janine Bell is a part, an integral part of who I am and who I became. And so will you join me in thanking my faculty member, my professor, Janine Bell, for coming. Thank you so much, Professor. I have to tell you, standing in this space, I have to face kind of my own journey into the legal profession over 20 years ago, in this very building, in this very hall. I think I might have sat in your seat. I love the tie. Great touch. Good touch. Absolutely. And so as I was sitting there, you know, I was standing behind the podium and someone said to me, you know what? You got to go to law school. This is what you got to do. Country girl from the South, you know, this will be the key. The law school will be the key that will unlock your door of opportunity. Well, they lied. You see, when I graduated from law school, the walls of the law school didn't hand me a key. They handed me, I got to tell you, something just a little bit greater than that. I was given the trust of this great academic institution. And with that trust, came this idea that I would represent my profession well. In 3 short years, you will join me and others in becoming an alum. And it says it here, Mauer School of Law. But before you get there, I want to challenge you to be present. Don't allow the next 3 years to just something that you're going through, okay? I want you to take the time, connect with those members, those colleagues, those friends within your class. Even today, almost 20 years later, you know, what was that kid's name that did really good in torts? Yeah, I need to call that guy. Yeah, where is he now? And we're still making those connections. I want you to open yourself up to listening to the other side. Anybody can make an argument, but it takes a really keen and an analysis done to actually listen to the other side. I want you to challenge the norm. I want you to be receptive to listening. Know what you don't know and keep asking questions. Your next 3 years offer a tremendous opportunity for bonding. It opens a tremendous opportunity for collaboration, whether it's through student organizations, whether it's through dancing at the barrister's ball, or perhaps even serving as an advocate in the courtroom. You have the next 3 years to explore all of this. And at the end of those 3 years, you will be joining the legal profession. Now, the reason why I use the word profession and not a job, because there's a distinct difference. What is it? I'm so glad you asked. Rarely do they ask the judge questions. Well, a profession is a calling. It's a vocation. And because it's different from that of a job, there's expectations that come with it. The expectations of a lawyer are high. And for a lawyer, they're relatively very high. And I'm here to talk about the one thing they asked me to do is to talk about professionalism and civility. And in doing so, I hope I can provide you with a lot of encouragement and perhaps just a little bit of inspiration. The Indiana Rules of Professional Conduct outlines the expectations and responsibilities of all legal professionals in this community. These rules are very succinct and straightforward, and they apply to you regardless of whether or not you decide to actually practice law. So I will use them as a guide this afternoon. In the preamble of the Professional Rules of Conduct, it says the very first block, always remember to read the footnotes, but in the preamble it says, all lawyers are encouraged to conduct yourselves honorably. And I said to myself, why would that be the first paragraph of what it means to be a lawyer? Because those who crafted the Professional Rules of Conduct understood that you were representing a profession. This is so important and has truly been the key to my success. Your conduct at Mauer will long outlive your time here. When my colleagues get together, we still ask each other, and I kid you not, do you remember that one time when you fill in the blank? Behaving honorably takes a conscious thought process and a deliberate behavior. You will be challenged here, but don't give in to the intimidation or the temptation to allow your integrity, your civility to be up for grabs. As I told you 3 minutes and 36 seconds ago, you will remember how you felt. You might not remember everything I say. You will remember how your colleagues made you feel. And believe it or not, after that first job, people hire people. We don't hire resumes. We will remember you as a person. And that's the legacy that will live on. And that's why civility in this profession is so very, very important. When I became a federal judge, I will tell you, and I will share this with all of you, is that when I wanted to become a federal judge, it was not because this is some great thing that I aspired to. It's because those opponents that I went against for the past 14 years representing the United States of America here in the Southern District of Indiana, defense lawyers asked me to put in. I was sitting in court. My husband and I were thinking and talking through whether or not making that transition made sense to move to the federal bench. I was in a hearing, supervised release hearing, and it was a defendant who had spent several years in federal prison. He was there on a supervised release. He had now returned and left prison. He had heard the buzz that there was a position open for a federal judgeship here in the Southern District of Indiana. And he said, at that time, AUSA Pryor, are you considering applying? And I looked at him, he said, you saved me. You were the first person to ever treat me as a person. You were the first person that was willing to engage with me as the prosecutor, right? And to see me and to see beyond me. We need more of that at the federal bench. See, your word and your integrity, that's all you have. Everybody in this room is in the top 10%. Then you say, well, how do I divide amongst the top 10%? It's your integrity. That's what you'll see the dividing line be. Be vigilant when others in the profession are asking you to do something that you think crosses the line. Be vigilant in protecting your brand. A reputation can be made over a lifetime. It can be destroyed in one incident. Recently, I had the honor of hiring an impressive new law clerk. Had been out of law school maybe a year and a half. And an outstanding lawyer in the Indianapolis community took the time to call me and to tell me how phenomenal she was and what a terrific lawyer she was in the community. Now, this lawyer was a pillar in the Indianapolis community, had taken time out of their day, 20 years, over 20 years more in the profession, but in a year and a half, valued this new young lawyer and took the time and thought enough of her to actually call me and to confirm and validate that choice. So as a lawyer, you will perform various functions. You will serve as an advisor to your client. You will serve as an advocate for your client. You will serve as a negotiator on behalf of your client. While wearing these many hats, you will be tired. It's tiring work, but you will be well prepared. The law can be hard work, but it can be incredibly challenging and intellectually stimulating. Here at the law school, you will have the opportunity to be taught by national leaders in criminal law, national leaders in international human rights, national leaders in environmental law, civil rights law, and the list goes on and on and on. And I can assure you that they achieved their competencies in one way. Here's the secret: remaining diligent, working hard, and refusing to surrender their passion. If you know the area of the law you want to practice, good for you. It's great. I didn't. If you don't, I have a good news. You have chosen a graduate educational experience that will prepare you not only for a career in the law, but for one in business, one in philanthropy, teaching, and everything in between. The analytical skills you'll learn will translate into competency in everything you do. My three best friends that I met here at the law school. One is a member of one of the largest philanthropic organizations in the world. Another best friend is right now fulfilling his dream as a sports agent on the West Coast, ensuring that baseball players are being led into the major leagues. My third best friend, being a part of enforcement, U.S. Postal Service. See, and just as important it is to master what you do know, it's just as important to know what you don't. But here it's okay. You don't always have to know the answers or assume that you do. The best lawyers are curious, but humble, willing to ask questions and actually listen for the answer. Now, don't mistake humility for weakness. As outlined in the principles of the preamble, disagreements and legitimate ethical problems will arise in our profession, but we have a duty to exercise both professional and moral judgment on resolving those issues. With that, here at the law school, there are numerous networking opportunities. through internships and clinics and through courses taught by tenured, clinical, and adjunct professors. I want you to meet them. I want you to meet the practitioners in all type of legal practice, business, governmental, even if you think that's something I don't want to do. Tap into it. And if you are committed to practicing with strong character, with competency, with courtesy, community engagement, you will thrive here at Mauer School of Law. Right at 7 minutes and 58 seconds. Thank you for giving me the last 8 minutes that you can never get back. You will find in your laps, and it was outside on the doors, the oath of professionalism. I'm going to ask if you will rise with me. You were much shorter when you were seated. I'm going to administer the oath from here. You'll repeat after me. Please raise your right hand to the best of your ability. Your other right, good. Please repeat after me. As a student entering Indiana University Mauer School of Law. I understand I am joining not only an academic community, but embarking on a professional career that has a special responsibility to the public. I acknowledge that my conduct inside and outside of the law school reflects on the entire Indiana law community. Past, present, and future. I will conduct myself with dignity and civility, and will treat all fellow students, staff, faculty, alumni, guests, and employers with courtesy and respect. I promise to live up to the highest standards of the legal profession and uphold the highest standards of integrity, academic honesty, and ethical practice throughout law school and the remainder of my professional career. Congratulations, you may be seated. Woo-hoo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, congratulations. I was a little worried there you weren't going to make it through it. So it's always good news. Well, with that, that concludes our orientation and welcome to law school. Can you join me in thanking Heather Jen and Judge Pryor again for their inspiring. Unless Katie's going to flag me down, I think that concludes everything. Have a wonderful Sunday. Looking forward to seeing you in the hallways early next week. Thank you so much. Or still Saturday. Enjoy the day too. Okay, thanks so much.
Nice to meet you, son. It seems like it's just down the street.